Welcome, my friends, to this week's video. Today we have something a little bit special, and I know what you're thinking. Special? Tracy, come on, it's a Civic. How special can it be? As it turns out, though, very special indeed, because this is not only the Civic, but it is the Civic Si. And further to that, it is a Civic and the 2023, it should be said, Honda Civic Si with a 6-speed manual transmission. This is one of probably the defining car of my childhood. Not necessarily the Si, if I may say, but a manual Honda Civic. When I was growing up, this is what all my friends drove. I didn't have any money for a car, but these are the kind of cars they drove. And I spent a lot of time in these things. Usually they were the two-door coupe models, but of course they don't make those anymore, and that is what it is. But this thing, I just have to show you, is very, very pretty. I'm not sure I've been a huge fan of all the design choices that Honda's made for the exterior of the Civic in the last 10 years, but this one works. This one works absolutely fantastically. It looks great. So yeah, it looks awesome. I love it. This one comes with I believe it's an optional trim package. I'm sorry, they didn't provide me with a window sticker, but you get this black trim and that really cool trunk spoiler on the back, and some other bits and pieces to kind of add to the look of it. So as we come around to the front, we get the sort of traditional Civic grille, but we do get the Si accent. I love that. You know, it's not ostentatious or vulgar, but you do know upon looking at it what you're dealing with. Apologies for the rain. We finally got rain today after about 10 weeks of hot and dry, and it is beautiful. I love it. I'll shoot videos in rain all day long. So that's the exterior of the car. We should take a look, since we're out here, at the trunk, a traditional trunk. We don't get a lot of these anymore, do we? You know, real trunks. And this one is quite a good size, actually. I believe this insert here is an optional extra at your dealer, but well worth it. I spilled a Red Bull in here yesterday and was able to mop it up with ease. So that's, yeah, kudos to that thing. Yeah, good size trunk. You can take golf clubs in here, various bits and pieces. I managed to squeeze a paddleboard, a cooler, and a whole bunch of other crap in the boot, the trunk of this thing. And on the way to lake a couple of days ago, it was great. It's a lot bigger than it looks, which is really neat. So kudos to the trunk. The back seat, well, yeah, it's a back seat, isn't it? Yeah, I don't really care about the back seat, to be honest, because the Civic Si, excuse me as I grunt and groan, is not about the back seats. It is about driving, but we do want to touch on it, don't we? Because I'm nothing if not comprehensive and thorough. You get your standard third row, or back seat cup holder here, or console with the cup holders, etc. And that's about it. You get 2 charging ports, which is very nice to see. The HRV, which this shares some chassis components with this thing. Obviously, that's on the SUV side of it. Does not come with any power in the back, which was a crushing disappointment. You can see this seating position is actually interesting. I should comment on that. I did a road trip in this car yesterday, about 750 kilometers. 13 hours in the car. My brother-in-law and friend joined me for that trip, and he's a large fella, 6'5", and this was his seating position all day long. I haven't touched the seat, and yeah, we'll touch on that later while we're driving, but yeah, there's still kind of room, sort of, but yeah, if you want to put people back here, you're good. Let's move on, shall we? Because today is all about driving. Okay, so let's talk about the upholstery. So you get fabric upholstery, back seats, front seats, etc. The driver's seat and the passenger seat, of course, get these red inserts, the little SI badge in the stitching there, which is really cool. I dig that. This is kind of a classic sports car, or sporty-ish car, sorry. I don't mean to over-represent, but yeah, sort of, you know, nicely bolstered, very firm. I'm not designed to fit into these seats, to be honest, and they held me up just fine. No problem. So for 13 hours, no less. All right, let's hop inside. How's getting in and out? Oh, let's look at this. This is the Si animation. It's cool. I like it. So here we are in the interior. A pretty traditional Honda interior, I think. You get all the usual bells and whistles. I'm not going to walk you guys through this comprehensively. I'm trying to make this a slightly shorter video, but you get all the usual suspects. One thing you do get in this, I think it comes in all Civics, as a differentiation between, you know, other vehicles, are these little toggles to control the vents, and I really like those. They're much easier to use than the slider things that you get in some other Honda models. So these were a nice upgrade, and they come behind this what's now becoming a ubiquitous honeycomb thing across the grille here. You get the, we should turn it on, I suppose. There's the start button tucked in way back there. Clutch in, and she fires up. It fires up, whatever we're saying these days. Turn that off. Okay, so you get the Honda infotainment system. Very standard stuff. The resolution of the screen's okay. The cameras are crap, just like the HRV, very grainy. Here, I'll put it in reverse and you can see what I'm talking about. Yes, it's raining today. The cameras just aren't spectacular. I would have expected better, but I wasn't surprised. I'm pretty sure I turned the Bluetooth off on that phone. Sorry, Hugh Lewis. But anyway, so I would have expected better cameras. That would have been a nice surprise. But again, yeah, that just wasn't going to happen. So you get the dash cluster here, fully digital. You get temperature gauge on the left, which is fixed. Fuel gauge on the right, which is also fixed. Everything else mildly adjustable. They don't give you a ton of options, which I dig. So yeah, it's just, yeah, the little bit of information, and that's it. You also get these, oh, come on this side here, these dots here, and those don't really kick in until you start, I hope you guys can see that, until you start driving really aggressively, and then it sort of gives you an indication of when to shift before you blow everything up. Otherwise, what else do we get? We get the charging pad, 6-speed manual transmission. Oh baby, it's good to be back. Two things I want to touch on, which has sort of struck me as curious about this car. Most manuals that I haven't been in a ton of them, so don't hold me to this, but you don't get the auto on off in most of those, but you do in the Civic. I usually turn it off, of course, because I despise that system, but it is here, which is interesting, actually. And one thing about driving a manual, for those of us that still do it, is backward drift. So you're sitting at a light at sort of an angle, right? Or whatever, well, maybe not that steep, but you know, an angle is going to make you roll backward, and you're always concerned you're going to roll into the car behind you. Well, this thing has brake hold, incredibly. It's auto hold on an automatic transmission, but this has brake hold. So the car knows when you're at an angle, and it'll hold you there until you've feathered the clutch and the gas enough to achieve forward momentum. Very cool. I'm on the flats, unfortunately, so I guess I won't be demonstrating that system today, but it is very cool. That solves a lot of problems. One of the biggest, scariest parts of driving manual for a lot of people. So I think, friends, that is enough of that. No more yammering. We got cup holders, center console. That's it. Whatever. Don't worry about it. We're driving a manual today. So good. Look, can you see down there? 3 pedals. 3. Oh my God. I know millennials are like, what the hell's the extra pedal for? Is that like a spare? But no, that's the clutch. Now they're asking, what the hell's a clutch? Anywho, turn the emergency brake off, put it in first gear. Oh, baby. And just a little bit of feathering, and we are off and running. Let's start with the gears. The car has, as far as I can tell, very long gears, except for first. First is just designed to get you started. But as soon as you get into second gear, third gear, fourth, on down the line, you have a ton of travel in the gears. It's quite, forgive the bumpy road. You get a lot of travel in the gears, so you can do, you know, you don't run the risk of stalling anywhere near as much. You're not going to have much power if you're in the wrong gear at the wrong time, but you're not going to stall out. You know, we did a wonderful road trip yesterday. I went to a very pretty place. I wanted to take some really cool pictures with a nice background of this car, just because, in case you can't tell, I am a big fan. And yeah, I found myself in everything from 4th to 5th gear, 6th gear, and yeah, it just didn't seem to matter which one. They all handled it fairly well, until I had to go up a hill, of course, and then I had to shift. But yeah, it's nice. It made cruising quite easy and comfortable. So here we are. We're on the road. What should we talk about? Oh, so many things. I'm probably going to forget most of them, but I do want to turn on that, because otherwise it'll fog up. So where does this thing start price-wise? There's really only one trim level in Canada anyway, and the price sits, right around $35,000 Canadian. That's pretty good. I mean, it's a lot of money for a Civic, fine, fair enough, but you know, cars, you'd be hard pressed in any other four-door sedan to get this much for the same amount of money. So yeah, it's expensive, but yet represents good value in the current market, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So you get a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's a teeny tiny little power plant. It manages to give you 200 horsepower, and I'll have to look up the torque figure, pardon me, I forgot. But it is a perfect amount of power. It doesn't really matter what you're looking for. Like front wheel drive, there's been an endless debate about how much power you can put through a front wheel drive vehicle before the need to power the car overpowers your desire to steer it in a particular direction. All that stuff, I'm not an authority on it, whatever. You know, I've always thought 200, 225 at the most, depending on what you're doing, is kind of, you know, max, because otherwise, I mean, the front end's just sort of going all over the place, and that's not good for anybody, especially if you're dealing with inclement weather. This thing has a fancy diff, anyway, it has a fancy diff up front, which kind of helps you keep the front wheels going where you want them to, whilst also propelling the vehicle forward. This is a common occurrence. Ford does this. I know Hyundai does it as well in their in a couple of their cars, I think. You know, it's how they cure aggressive torque steer. It still happens, but you know, and allow you to maintain front wheel drive and still have, you know, enough power to have some fun and enjoy the driving experience. Honda has achieved that in spades here. This is very well balanced. I think that's what I love about it more than anything else. Also, turbo lag. There almost isn't any, as long as you're in the right gear. Sorry, I should clarify that. If you're in the right gear and you put your foot down, this thing pulls and pulls. It's like that. And that's unusual, right? I mean, we know what turbos are like. Lag is just par for the course. This thing, I don't know how they dealt with that, but it is really, really cool. I'm gonna have to turn around, aren't I? Yeah, it's a dead end. Oh well, whatever. It just, here, like, I'm in third gear, we're doing 40 kilometers an hour, you put your foot down, and it just goes, right? And it makes noises, and it's just it's so good. There's so little lag, and it just pulls, and that 200 horsepower is just, it's fabulous. I really, really approve of how they've set this thing up. It works so well. What else is there to talk about? Oh, so many things. I want to touch on, I really do need to make it clear how many miles I put on this thing yesterday. We were in the car for 13 and a half hours. We stopped for breakfast, we stopped for a late lunch, and made a few pit stops along the way, and that's about it. Otherwise, we were in the car the whole time, and I had no butt ache, my back didn't hurt. I felt great. My brother-in-law, same thing. He was astonished. You know, we should have been just, you know, silly puddles of mush after about 6 or 7 hours, but there was no punishment in driving this car. None. It was absolutely fabulous. I really enjoyed it. Where am I going to turn around? Here, let's turn around right here, and I hope I don't puncture a tire. I come down to this particular part of the city I live in just because it's quiet, but sometimes bad things happen down here. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Colebrook Road, if you're interested in the city. Sorry, Google it. It's where they burn cars after crimes. Anyway, yeah, so we took an extensive road trip. I wanted to know what this thing was like. You know, not only could you daily it, but could you road trip in it, and you absolutely can. It's great. It's got tons of space. It's even got a little sunroof that you can use. It's not panoramic or any of that nonsense, but it's a sunroof, and it works great. I don't use them, typically speaking, but yeah, it's really cool. The car is great. Have I said that yet? Yeah. Have I blown my load on my opinion of this particular vehicle? It's very special, isn't it? You know, you talk about a visceral, connected driving experience. This is what we're talking about, right? Automatics don't give it to you. Electric cars most certainly don't, and that's not a criticism. It's just a different thing. You know, you feel when you're driving a car like this that you are connected to the experience, that you are involved. You are making the decisions, you know, about what gear you're going to be in, how many RPMs you're pumping out, you know, all that stuff. and there is no auto drive. There's cruise control, but that's about it. You know, it's up to you. You are in charge here, and I love it. I absolutely love it. How many competitors to this car are there? Well, there are a few, actually. I was thinking to myself a couple of days ago, I'm like, this car stands alone. I love to say that, it's a great line, you know, but it doesn't. There are actually quite a few competitors when you really boil it down. Now, it depends on what you're looking for. But you can get the Hyundai Elantra N line. Am I getting that right? I always confuse it between the N and the, or N series. N series? Yeah, anyway, the sporty Elantra. That's a 6-speed manual. You get more horsepower. I haven't driven that one. I'd love to give it a go because I believe it is still front-wheel drive, and you get 276 horsepower in that thing and almost 300 pound-feet of torque. That is a buttload of power. So I don't know how well front-wheel drive would handle that, to be honest. But it is a direct line competitor. This thing, 4-door sedan, you know, front wheel drive, etc. I don't know if all that additional power and torque is going to give you anything. My theory on it is it would probably make it a little less easy to handle because this Civic is so manageable. It just, you never feel afraid when you're driving in it. You really don't. It's incredible. So other than that, if you're willing to accept 2 doors, you've got the, what are they calling it now at Toyota? The GR86? I always forget. Yeah, the GR86. Is that the one? 2-door, 2+2? Yeah. And then the equivalent, the BRZ, depending on what country you're from, over at Subaru. You've got those. They all kind of sort of cost in the same arena. Some a little more, some a little less. They provide you with similar levels of horsepower, and of course they are designed to be a sporty driving experience. I'm trying to get my hands on some of those to really draw a direct comparison because, and you can get them, all of them in manual, which is important. So the BRZ and the GR86 are rear wheel drive. That's a different factor altogether. Probably the better setup for, obviously the better setup for a sportier driving experience, but does tend to limit you sometimes, you know, especially in inclement weather, etc. So I think those are the primary competitors for the most part, you know, whilst keeping, you know, all factors considered. The Civic Si, I love this car. I do. I would go and buy one tomorrow. I truly would. You would not be disappointed in it. It just delivers so much, so well. So, if a 4-door front-wheel drive sports car is in your future, think about the Civic Si. The car itself comes with all the bits and pieces you might normally expect, and a good dose of surprise. It is supremely comfortable. I proved that to myself, mostly. You know, in a very, very long day behind the wheel. And I got home and went right into the garage and did a workout. Normally I would be bagged, honestly. It was great. It was a fabulous day. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I was able to make the time. And Robbie, if you're listening or watching, which I know you're not, thank you for joining me. Appreciate that. It was a good time. So I guess that'll do it for us. Questions, comments, criticisms, you know where to put them, right down below. And you guys enjoy your day and get out and drive. Hopefully you have a manual to drive, because it's just the best, isn't it? Have a great day. We'll see you guys next time.